Good afternoon, and welcome to the second webinar in Cassio's webinar series on equity in education. As a long-standing member and supporter through scholarships of both TOTOS and the Benjamin Banneker Association, Cassio is proud to partner with them in these important discussions. The title for today's webinar is Rehumanizing Schools, Rights of the Learner. We are honored to have Olga Torres presenting today from TOTOS. For the sake of webinar quality, we are keeping everyone muted and all videos turned off, except for the presenters. If you have a question or comment, please type it in the chat panel and make sure to send it to everyone. This webinar will be recorded and available on Cassio Education's YouTube channel and TOTOS's website. Also, a certificate of attendance will be available upon request. My name is Trudy Van Duzen, and I am the Cassio Sales Manager in the Midwest. Also moderating today will be Amy Chow, who is our National Training and Product Manager, along with Dr. Karen Greenhouse, our spokesperson and consultant for Cassio. During these uncertain times, Cassio is proud to support all educators as much as we can through our Cassio Cares program. We offer affordable handheld graphing and scientific calculators. We have emulator downloads, which will be free until December 31st. Our ClassPad.net software will have all access free until December 31st. We will continue to have free classroom activities to support all math curriculums, and we will have free virtual trainings available through October 31st. Cassio has always provided high quality and affordable technology for everyone. We work hard to address the technology access gap to support all students and teachers. Along with our free web-based mathematics software, ClassPad.net, we have recently introduced our newest affordable graphing calculator, the FX9750 V3. To learn more about our calculators and software, visit CassioEducation.com. And now we have Linda Fulmore, the president of TOTOS, to share their mission statement and introduce our presenter. Linda?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone. TOTOS is indeed honored to have been invited to participate in Cassio's Equity in Education webinar series. We have enjoyed a great partnership with Cassio over the years as Cassio sponsors our Iris Carl Awards. And it turns out our speaker this afternoon is the 2020 Iris Carl Award winner in teaching and learning. TOTOS's mission is to advocate for excellence, equity, and justice for all children, especially Latinx children in school and in life. Our most recent position statement, Anti-Racism in Mathematics Education, and the supporting commentaries provide better practices for the opening of this school year and beyond. You will find the statement and 3 of the 4 commentaries on our website right now. The 3 commentaries, or the 3rd commentary, Parents as Partners, was just posted last night. The 4th commentary is in final edits. Please read them and share with colleagues. Also notice in the lower left-hand corner of this slide information about TOTOS membership. We would love to have you as a member. The next slide provides new dates for our postponed 2020 conference. The pre-conference has now been rescheduled for June 28, 2021, and the conference itself will begin that night and will be also on June 29th and 30th. So keep checking back at the website for more information. And now it is my honor to introduce the speaker for this afternoon. We have something in common. We both hail from the great state of Arizona. I should say the hot, humid state of Arizona. She lives in Tucson, and I live in Phoenix. Olga Torres has been a bilingual elementary teacher and mathematics instructor, K-12, for over 40 years. She has made a lifetime commitment to creating teaching and learning environments with equity and social justice at the center of her work. She desires to honor the human capacity both in students and in teachers. As I said, Olga is the Todos 2020 Iris Carl Award winner in teaching and learning. So I present to you Olga Torres.
Good afternoon. Please be patient with me. So I'm having,
Okay, Olga, this is Karen.
Yes.
So can you not see the from current slide? If you click that, you should start presenting. Up at the, there you go, click.
that's what it did. It didn't do it. Let's try again. Well, this is a nice happening.
It's okay. It's all good. Oh,
Okay.
start sharing your screen again. You look lovely.
Where is my screen? Screen sharing has stopped.
Okay, so you need to start sharing your screen again. There you go.
There we go. So
And find your PowerPoint.
I'm on Zoom.
Yeah, so remember we go down to the bottom and find at the bottom there you go, that right there, click that. We're seeing your screen, so where's your try to find your PowerPoint. Sorry everyone,
I think her PowerPoint got closed, so you might have to open it up.
you might have to open your PowerPoint again and start sharing. Meanwhile, why don't we ask everybody where they're from? If everyone can start in the chat panel while we're waiting, just give us a little brief notification of where you're from. So we got people from all over: Ohio, Missouri, Florida, Montana, New York.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's all good. Technology sometimes gets the best of us. Wow, we have people, Germany. Wow, that's, but living in Georgia. Well, welcome everyone. We are glad that you could join us today. Here we go. Can you click? There we go.
There you go.
So now I click on the Zoom.
No. We see everything. Just start the slide. Just hit your slideshow. Start playing. We see it. Okay, and remember this is where you. There we go. Yay! All right.
Oh my God.
Take it away.
Okay. Welcome. You're here in a webinar that I am very passionate about. I was asked to talk about rehumanizing schools and the rights of the learner. And there's a vision that we're going to be creating. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of information concerning what this webinar will be about. And then I'll give you a little bit of history about who I am, because it kind of gives you an idea of why what I do. The webinar session is about creating a vision of education, bringing meaning to the roots of the term education. And first of all, relating it to rehumanizing schools and mathematics. It's also using the meaning of rehumanizing to clarify confusion between equity and equality. Becoming familiar with the rights of the learner and that create a learning environment for optimal learning, especially in mathematics. One of the most important things that the rights of the learner create is just not only do we provide an environment for our students, but it also provides an environment for ourselves as learners, and we give ourselves those rights, and it gives us hope and encouragement to continue to adapt and make changes in our teaching just so that children have the best learning possible. Providing the rights of the learner as a framework for creating the context in which rehumanizing practices occur. Now, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to eliminate all of the side pictures. So, see what happens. Oh, that didn't happen. All right. Stay with Olga. Creating a vision. All right, here we go. Meanings are not built into written words. They're created by the reader who interprets them using their own network of ideas. And one of the things that's really important is we're using the word rehumanizing. But what exactly will it mean? One of the things that we know that two people experience a poem or a story in the same way, but because their literacy experience is personal, and it depends on the meanings that they bring to the markings, that we get a different message because each of us interprets what we hear and what we read through our experiences. And that's a very important concept. This is from the Piaget primer Ed Labinowitz. So one of the things that I'd like for us to do right now is, in your chat box, what meaning do you bring to the world when you hear the word rehumanizing? So right now, just as you hear it, what comes to your mind? What does it mean, rehumanizing? Okay. One of the things that I'm seeing is just a variety of comments, but one of the things that I see is the dehumanizing. So you have an idea of what dehumanizing is. But at the same time, what you're doing is also identifying that people are different and they need to be acknowledged for who they are, not be cast into one role, but that we need to be discovering. Putting back the human element first that was taken away. Our children, we are all humans. Our children walk into our classrooms and they come with so much knowledge. Our job is to rehumanize schools so that children have a voice and they have a chance to discover all that they know. There are so many things that they can do and say, but no one tells them how powerful their thinking is or how powerful their illustrations are. We, many times in our schools, we just kind of bring them in and there's a curriculum to be taught and that's it. And the kids need to follow rules. Humanizing is remembering we have children in our classrooms. They think, they speak, they feel, and all of that has to be taken into account. The goal of education is not to promote inferiority, but to enhance the human potential of every student entering our classrooms so they can develop confidence and hope toward lifelong learning. be secure in their own identity, be aware of their human and civil rights, and have the critical literacy skills to adapt and confront a future neither they nor we can possibly imagine. Our education is not to pass on or build on the past as much as uncover the present, learn from the past, and plan for the future. And that comes with our choices and our decisions, our values, and our hope for a greater world. So if we're going to rehumanize our schools, that means that it's a verb, as Rochelle Gutierrez talks about. It's a verb that means that you're going to be thinking and you're going to be watching and discovering. And once you discover, you're going to have to think about what you just saw and you're going to have to make decisions on it as a reflective practitioner. So as a reflective practitioner, I want you to reflect and respond to the following questions because you're going to be the decision maker. You're going to control the emotions of the students. You're going to control how their potential is going to be enhanced. We're powerful people, and we have to understand the power of our teaching. So right now, what learning conditions encourage confidence and hope? Think about it. What makes you confident? What gives you hope? What learning conditions created that? Please put your thoughts in the chat box. With learning conditions, you're getting to see that confidence and hope is it deals with emotions. It deals with communication, how we talk to people, being a citizen in a community, having a sense of community, a positive environment. Students feel supported, kindness, all of those emotions. And one of the things that we know, and it's so important, the neuroscience has come out, is that social emotional development is critical for academic achievement because the brain will protect the human. And if there's any anxiety or anything that frightens the student, the emotions kick in. And cognitively, the student cannot be studying anything else because he's dealing with survival. So the social and emotional intelligence is critical to teaching. Confidence and hope convinces someone that there's an opportunity, that someone cares, that someone is there to support them. They're encouraged. They speak with encouraging words. They can think calmly. They feel safe. They feel respected. Now I want you to think about this question. What learning conditions or situations encourage you to adapt and confront? Think about adapt and confront. So when we're looking at conditions or situations that encourage you to adapt, many of you talked about or wrote about being collaborative, being in a situation where you don't expect things to happen. So you have to contend with information. And maybe it's something that you hadn't thought about, but you realize that was information that you didn't have before. So you adapt. When you confront, you have to value what it is that you're confronting. And at times there's going to be confrontation where you need ideas and your thoughts to be communicated to someone else. Confrontation and adaptation means that you are in control of the decisions you're going to make that will allow you to feel respected and safe. Those are decisions you're making. Keep that in mind as we work with our students. Do they have a sense of hope, confidence? What in the environment nurtures that? What learning conditions encourage kids to adapt, confront? What learning conditions encourage you to adapt and confront? Because we're in it together. And the word collaborate is very powerful. Also, there's going to be times, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, where mistakes are going to be made. And in my classroom, when we have mistakes, we call them celebrations. And the question isn't, what did you do wrong? The question is, what do you know now that you didn't know before? And boy, it becomes real powerful when you start thinking like that. Teaching through the lens of mathematics. One of the things that I read early on in my education when I first started teaching was this quote: the roots of the term education implying drawing out children's potential and making them more than they were. And this was Professor Mary Ashworth in the book Jim Cummings wrote, Empowering Minority Students. When I first started teaching, I started in language experience approach. We had Roach Van Allen as our mentor. And the policy was to begin with children's culture and language and experiences. We walked the neighborhood, we'd visit the homes, we got to know where children lived, where they walked, what they saw, and we get everything and we built a curriculum around their experiences. It was the best place that could have been put for my first year of teaching. But I also learned that the respectful manner in which children were being treated and parents were being invited into the classroom. And when I returned, I took a leave of absence because of my children. When I returned, I went to a school with a principal that had been in the school prior to my leave of absence, and I was given an ungraded primary. I didn't think anything of it. That was fine. However, the ungraded primary, now keep in mind, bilingual education was just breaking code here. They were just starting to talk about bilingual education. And the kids that were in that classroom were all first graders that spoke Spanish, all second and third graders that were disenfranchised and supposedly just didn't want to do their work. Put them all together in ungraded primary, and that was the classroom I got. I'm coming out of a leave of absence. I have 4 children. I'm just enchanted with the intelligence of these children. And I'm put in a situation where these children view themselves as failures. And just that alone just made me so defiant. There was no way these kids were going to feel that way. So I took the curriculum and I worked with them, and I got a bulletin board in the hallway of the school because we were in a portable. And my kids engaged in some investigations that were so powerful, and we posted everything so that kids in the school could see what the kids were learning in that portable. And they were learning things that the other kids were not learning, and they were enchanted by it. They were reading everything that the kids were writing. The kids in my classroom were excited, and they were finding that they were very capable. I also discovered the children in the intermediate grades or third grade, it wasn't that they were lazy. It's just that they were monolingual. They were English speakers, but they did not have the receptive language in English. So they could read, but they didn't have that language to interpret the meaning of those words. So it wasn't that they were lazy, it was just they didn't have a receptive language to be able to understand the language that we're reading, the English language. And so I started to work in ways that I could be defiant and try to create learning opportunities for children to feel that they were very successful. The more I asked children to tell me what would help them, the more I understood what I needed to do with these students. And it's one of the reasons that the rehumanizing word got my attention, because that's what I had to do from the start. And all I did, with what I did, I discovered the power of children's intelligence, the power of them being capable learners, and we just have to be careful with what we do. So when we deal with making more, we need to look at the mathematics of it. Mathematically speaking, the definition encourages one. I don't know if my picture is in the way right now, but anyway, mathematically speaking, the definition encourages one to consider making more. In mathematics, if you make more, it implies that there exists an equality factor, building on an existing foundation before more can be determined. So in this case, if the root meaning of education is to draw children's potential and make them more than they were, then it indicates that the foundational curriculum of instruction begins with student experiences and knowledge and skills. That's where we start. That's how we empower our students. So here's a question that I have for you. This is a poll. I'd like for you to look at this statement, and I'd like for you to tell me if you agree or disagree. Just yes, no. That's all I need. Looking at the poll, it looks like 80% of you agree, and no one said no. Okay, well, let's see. Let me remove that poll.
Just hit the X up at the top, Olga, so
Yeah.
you don't see it
I
anymore.
got it. I'm going to tell you that I don't agree with you. I believe this. All children learn. I don't want to use the word can. Can is very limiting. It's conditional. And one of the things that I know is that if we use the word can, it limits us. We start thinking, what can I teach the child? What can the child do? What can we bring to the classroom? What can we use to teach our kids? It removes the attention from the students. It also is a detriment, because we start seeing that what the children can't do, we falter for their effort. And in 2001, the No Child Left Behind, you would think that law, just by the name of it, No Child Left Behind, would mean that all children were going to be considered. All children were going to have opportunities to learn and achieve. All children were going to be considered. And yet, the No Child Left Behind law started limiting experiences. Testing came into play, comparisons. Schools were rated and graded. Curriculum was narrow and scripted. And what happened was our children became victims of that. And because of the can. And how we read that determines our decision. And if we look at the way the law promoted the deficit model, then we can also see that it was read with a fixed mindset, that we had communicated to some of the kids that maybe they weren't as smart as they could be, and they were limited to what they could learn. And so we passed on this idea that some kids are good in math and some are bad at math. And that was wrong. When you think about all children learn, all you do is start thinking, what do they know? And what are children doing? Well, one of the most important things is learning is not an occasional event to be stimulated, provoked, or reinforced. Learning is what the brain does naturally. Children are learning all the time, and every decision we make is impacting the children. It's impacting their identity and whatever hope they might have, or maybe not have hope. Learning is a social phenomenon. What we learn is a consequence of the company we keep. So now we have to be reflective. Our decisions, what do we create in our environment? What are children learning about themselves because of the choices we're making? And what choices do children have? Do they have a voice? This is very important because one of the things that we tend to rely on, because it's maybe the background of our teaching and our learning in the different schools that we've attended as kids, is a fixed mindset. We see things through a deficit model. A growth mindset is all children learn. And what you do is, as rehumanizing, you look for discoveries. You're in discovery mode all the time. You know you don't know enough. You know what you know is tentative. And at any given point, you can change your viewpoint or your idea because you're getting information. You're creating situations that allow you to witness and to examine your beliefs and at the same time discover. And it's the discovering that I want to encourage us today to do. This came from Book of Learning and Forgetting from Frank Smith. So let's rehumanize in our schools. Let's be reflective practitioners. One of the things that I had to do when I was working as a resource teacher, I worked in the schools, and one of the things that I saw was that I saw kids being eliminated from the classroom because of this deficit model. The conventional wisdom was, let's work with the children that want to learn, and let's take the kids that don't want to learn, take them out, give them time out. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I did hear it in my school. And I'm the one that goes and works with the teachers, so I walk the halls, and I was seeing that the same kids were being eliminated from the classroom, day in and day out. I started to worry. What are students learning about eliminating or the removal of a student from a classroom? I started really worried about these kids. They weren't getting an education because they were constantly being eliminated. What provoked the student? What made this student act that way? What sense of hope does the student have in returning to the classroom? Why is the student always coming out? Aren't they doing something in the classroom to help the student? Are students learning that some students can be disregarded and discarded? That's the part that bothered me the most. Was what were the kids that remained in the classroom learning? Were they learning to be prejudiced against the student? If the problem arose in the classroom, what responsibilities does the class and the teacher have to help the student make better choices? What support system is in place to help students make good choices, enhance his or her social, emotional, and academic development? Can students govern themselves? How can students be accountable for their choices and come to see their peers as resources? How do students learn to be empathetic for their rights and the rights of others? These were the questions I had. So I had been out of the classroom for 7 years, and I decided that I wanted to go back to the classroom. I couldn't ask teachers to do something that I hadn't done myself. I needed to go back into the classroom, put my beliefs into practices, and be defiant. Because no child deserves disregard and disrespect. No child, no human. So I went back to the classroom. I didn't go to just any classroom. Oh no, not Olga. No, Olga went into a multi-age, multilingual classroom of 8 through 11-year-olds, 3rd through 5th. I had been an early childhood teacher. My experience was second language learning and working with young children. So it was a new experience for me. And when I started planning for this class, I needed the children. The core of the students in my classroom were the students that were being eliminated from the classroom. And the only way that I could work with them is having a multi-age classroom. I had to have 3rd through 5th because those were the kids that were being eliminated. They were in that grade. So I wanted the core of my students to be those students. Anybody else could be in my classroom, but I wanted those kids. I wanted to work with them because it bothered me. It bothered me that they were being eliminated. So when the kids came the first day of school, I tried to create an environment that was so enticing that they forgot anything negative in their lives and just were curious about what was happening in the classroom. But I sat with them, and they picked cards, and it was random selection. So they picked a card, and the card told them where to sit. I don't believe in sorting children by aptitudes in any way. I don't put myself in that situation. My job is to discover. And early on in education, I was attending a gifted program workshop, and the presenter began by quoting or crediting Einstein and saying, "For just a minor adjustment, we can find the giftedness in all human beings." Those words just penetrated my mind and my heart. For just a minor adjustment, we can find the giftedness in all human beings. Powerful. As I work with these kids with this multi-age classroom, I realize that minor adjustment isn't something we do to children. That's an adjustment we do within ourselves that allows us to discover the uniqueness of another human being. And I was in a position to just discover the genius in my students, and I did. When they came into the classroom, the first thing I told them was, when you walk in through that door, you walk into a new beginning. So I want you to think about things that happened last year, things that happened right before you came in. If there were things that made you unhappy, if there were choices that you made that you didn't like, if there were mistakes that you wish you hadn't done, leave them behind. Learn from them. If they made you feel bad, don't do it again. But when you walk into my classroom, please come in and let me discover you. My job is to discover you, but I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need you to tell me what are the conditions that are going to help you be the best learner you can be. And I will make sure that I will do that, and we all work together so that everyone can be the best learner they can be. Can we do that? So from day one, they started generating conditions. And every time they gave me a condition, I wrote it up in a language bubble, posted it with a child's name on it. I did that until I had every student in my classroom's language bubble up on the wall. I wanted my students to know they had voice and they were accountable for the governance of our community. And it's that background that I used that their learning rights emerged. But my students had voice first. They had to tell me what the conditions were. And as they keep generating it, every day we would read the conditions and we made sure that those conditions were part of our learning. And at the end of the day, we would review. And if there was anything we wanted to add, we added it. But everything was being generated by the students. One of the powerful quotes that my students have at the caddy table in Spanish and English is this quote from Jim Cummings. And he talks about human relationships are at the heart of schooling. The interactions that take place between student and teacher and among students are more central to student success than any method for teaching literacy or science. Students whose schooling experiences reflect collaborative relations of power develop the ability, confidence, and motivation to succeed academically. They participate competently in instruction as a result of having developed a secure sense of identity and the knowledge that their voices will be heard and respected within the classroom. They feel a sense of ownership for learning that goes on in the classroom, and a sense that they belong in the classroom learning environment. Empowerment derives from this process of negotiating identities in the classroom. Identities are not static or fixed, but rather are constantly being shaped through experience and interactions. Our choice and our decisions impact the identity of our students. It matters. Every choice we make, it matters. One of the things that I wanted my students to know was that I was going to present to them the rights of the learner, but I wanted them to know that they are part of a community, a global community, that what I'm going to present to them wasn't something that just Mrs. Torres does. I wanted them to understand that there's these proclamations throughout the world that people are fighting for their rights. They need to be recognized. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, just Article 1 just says all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. What does that mean? Let's look at our conditions for learning. Are we doing that? Are we conscious about what we're doing? Are we thoughtful? And the kids, they knew that was happening. That's part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I then presented to them the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And number 12, the right to freely express an opinion in all matters affecting him or her, or and to have their opinions taken into account mattered. So I told them, remember when you walked into my classroom, I told you I needed your help. I needed you to tell me what I could do to make sure that the environment was good and respectful and safe so that you could be the best learner you can be. Are you getting to feel that way? The kids were in agreement. And I go, from this, boys and girls, we have come up with learning rights. And these are the rights that we're going to abide by every day so that every one of us can be the best that we can be. The rights of the learner came from that background. It's not something I just imposed. It came with identifying the children that just really were not making it. I want you to know that those children were the most articulate about the conditions for learning. And those children, because of their articulation, other children learned to rethink their prejudice towards them because there was prejudice towards these children. And they learned just because I looked at the positive and I made sure that anything they contributed was worthy and we used it as learning lessons. Every child began to see that I was listening to them. I was using their ideas as part of my instruction, and they wanted to share their ideas because they knew that I was using it in my instruction. And this is what came of it. You have the right to feel confused. Confusion is part of learning. Confusion is how you accommodate new information, and it helps you sort through your toolbox of knowledge and select tools and ideas that are most useful to you. The kids, many times, when we do a math or we did a math activities, first thing I would ask him were questions on the social emotional. Did you meet with confusion? What did you do about it? And the kids would share what they did. And one of the things that the kids discovered was that because we talked about confusion, they realized that they weren't the only ones that were they were confused. When you don't talk, some children feel confused and they feel that they're at a deficit, that there's something wrong with them. But when you talk about the fact that confusion was part of the learning, then you ask, how did you work your way out of confusion? And they start talking, well, I talked to so-and-so, I did this, I did that. They have different reasons and they explain how they work themselves out of confusion. And they begin to see that confusion is expected and respected. Then kids aren't afraid to try. To make mistakes. Mistakes are learning opportunities because they redirect your thinking. Mistakes. One of my students was passing by and she was working on an activity called How Many Were Eaten. And I hear her say, oh, I made a mistake. So I stopped and I sat next to her and I go, how do you know you made a mistake? And she says, oh, I had candies in my box and I figured out how many candies had been in the box. And I forgot to subtract the number of candies that were still in the box. And as she explained it, it was just so clear. She had unit iterated the area. She knew how to describe it with multiplication, numbers, factors, and she was able to subtract. She was doing so much mathematics. And I go, Shayna, wow, that's a neat celebration you have there. I'm glad you made that mistake because it's a celebration in your learning. And I was talking to Shayna, and the next thing I hear is Jose Miguel, Mrs. Torres, I had a celebration too. He didn't say I made a mistake. He said, I had a celebration too. And that day, we learned to call mistakes celebrations. And every mistake we were able to use and capitalize this and deepen our understanding of content because mistakes were used as avenues for learning. And I got out books and I got Einstein's quote that talks, if you've never made a mistake, you've learned nothing new. And a book that deals with mistakes that we enjoyed, Toll House cookies, that was a mistake. Waffle cones, that was a mistake. There's all kinds of information and books that deal with mistakes. So the kids started to see the mistakes were just part of learning, and that's okay. The question isn't what did you do wrong? The question is, what do you know now that you didn't know before? To do and represent only what makes sense to you. If we're going to make more, we start from that foundation. What are children bringing to me? What am I going to use to help them with their thinking? What else needs to be learned? Kids learn to be autonomous. These rights promote autonomy. They're making the decisions. They're determining what they need to do. I'm just giving them the forum for it. Engaging conversations will allow you to ask questions, share ideas, listen to the thinking of others to support your learning. Learning is a process. One of the things the kids always told me that how many times they turned around and they talked to their peers, and it helped them with their decision making. So it became one of the rights of the learner. You need to do that. They would ask me, Mrs. Torres, can I do this and that? And I would look at them and I'd say, does it help? Will it help you? And would say, yes, it's your right. Go do it. And little by little, this came to be. And the last one is to feel safe and respected. It's your responsibility to take actions for the social and emotional conditions that will support your learning. The questions that I read to you earlier about my concerns, It's not my place to be the disciplinarian. It just isn't. We're a learning community. We're citizens. We're going to be, or our students are going to be the citizens of the future. They're going to need to know that they have to be accountable. So we have class meetings, and in the class meetings, transgressions are discussed. The children put their name, they put the transgression of what happened, who was responsible for it, how they felt, and the whole class make decisions, and the norms of interaction are negotiated. When we finish that class meeting, everyone knows what's expected of its citizens. And I find that I have very little discipline problems with my students because they know that they're accountable. So I want you to look at this drawing right here. So let's look at this little girl. And then what I'd like for you to do is, this is a 5-year-old, this is a kindergartner who drew this picture. Let's see. I don't see my words. So can you see well, I don't know.
Discover.
It's only the last part of the question, Olga. So maybe
Yeah, I don't-
just
yeah, I don't
say the
see-
question out loud.
Okay, well, I can't.
So you went ahead. Hit your back arrow. There you go.
I'll just ask you the question. If we're looking at this through a mathematics lens, what mathematics can you discover that this 5-year-old has discovered already on her own? She's just beginning school. What does she already know? What does she know? What math does she already know? Just kind of look at it and then just kind of jot it down in the chat box. What does she know? Symmetry, shapes, scale, proportion. Yes, yes. Texture. Yes. Our little girl is very aware of the mathematics in her environment. What she doesn't have maybe is the social conventions of naming it. But there's symmetry. Do you see that little bird? That bird has symmetry. It's got 2 wings too. It's got a triangle. Rate and proportion. She's looking at patterns. She's logical, very logical. Look at the green grass. Look at the flowers. You can find that in a place where grass is because there's probably some rain and water. There's a little bug on the floor too. She's learning about numbers because she's got 3 fingers on each hand, so she's still working at it. But the neat thing is that she's coming with so much knowledge. And that's the knowledge we need to discover when our kids come in. What experiences, what tasks can I create that will allow me to discover what children are bringing to me? What do you know about these students? Excuse me. Take a look at this. The answers are there. And all you see is that maybe there's one answer that's not correct. But you know nothing about the students because everything has been organized. The decision making has been taken away. And all they had to do was follow rules and procedures. But let's see what 64 plus 12 looks like when you ask children to do and represent only what makes sense to you. Here's student number 1. What do we see in that student? That student is learning how to represent his thinking. The student knows about place value, knows that the places of tens and ones, sees numbers friendly and renames them to equivalent expressions, uses 60 plus 10, has a sense of magnitude of the number, adds his ones, and the total is 76. I believe he understands additive reasoning. I believe he understands what those digits stand for. But now I question the inverse of subtraction. Can children use that kind of thinking with subtraction? What will they do? And there's his answer to me. He's taking 10 from the 50 and gets 40. But he knows that it was 53, so he puts back 3, and now he's got 43 minus 10, gets 33. The question is, why did he take another 10? Well, he needed to subtract a 7 from the 10, because you can't, and you're looking at the vertical position, can't take a 7 out of a 3 with the rules. But because he's not following rules, he's following logic and reasoning, he needed a 10, and he got his answer. Think about this. Children are asked to represent their thinking on chart paper, on their papers, and on the chalkboard. We're getting to see kids thinking. Here's another one. 64 plus 12. Right away got 76. What does he know? The 6 and the 1 are tens. That's 70. The 4 and the 2, 6. That's 76. What does subtraction look like? Rename the 50 to 50 plus 3 minus, and then right here he puts a 7 and he renames it to 6 plus 1. Then he has 53. He's back to 53. He takes a 10 because he has 17. Gets 43, and then 43 minus 6 minus 1. Minus 6 minus 1.
Seth, I just want to give you a 10-minute warning. Thank you.
You can tell that he knows that 6 minus 1 is taking away 7. He's comfortable with the symbols. Does he understand? Yes. He's using symbols to represent his thinking. He's externalizing his thoughts. And here he wrote 6 plus 1. There's no confusion. He knows what he's doing with his numbers and he knows the operations. This was a student who didn't understand and said, no sé, no puedo. So I put it in vertical position. She got the answer in vertical position. She got the answer, but she subtracted the 3 from the 7. And right here, the 13, if you add the digits 6, 4, 1, and 2, you will get 13. She knew she doesn't have the relationship, didn't have the experiences. What actions would you take to make this mistake a celebration of learning? All I did was I had children share their thinking. I had children work in menus, work with materials. I didn't see the need to sit and try to teach her, but I did give her more experiences. Then I came back to her after a week and a half of just exploring the physical and the visual mathematics. And this is how she represented her thinking. And this is how she represented her thinking. And right here, 43 minus 3, she took the 40. She needed to take 7, so she took up the 7 and then took 4 from the 40. And I asked her, how did you do that? And she goes, and she used the hundreds chart. And she showed me by counting the spaces, and she knew there was 36 left. We as teachers must trust that students are thinking and learning in silence as well as in conversations. Real quickly, I'm just going to walk you through it. This is a knock your block off. It's a game board. They have to use, if there's groups of 2, they have to use 10 groups of 2, and they have to show the answer and explain their logic. So in this situation, this student is trying to get the answer for 9 times 2, and he breaks up the 9. This is what he says. I know that 5 plus 5 equals 10, and 4 plus 4 equals 8, so 10 plus 8 equals 18. So 9 times 2 equals 18. Do you accept my logic? And that's something that the kids always have to ask. Do you accept my logic when they're explaining their thinking? And then what I do is I walk around and listen to their thinking. They're doing this all at conceptual level. They're just playing the game. There's no writing going on. All they're doing is just connecting. And then at the concept level, I connect and I take their thinking and I go, tell me what you did. They explain it to me. And then I put in parentheses, tell me the number you made friendly. And we hug a number. So when you see parentheses in my student work, they're hugging. They're telling me what numbers are friendly. And then they tell me what they did. We can see it. And then 2 groups of 5, can you see it? 2 groups of 4, can you see it? 10 plus 8 equals 18, therefore 2 groups of 9 equals 18. So we have commutative property going on, but because they're thinking it, I'm not teaching it. They're already thinking it. I'm just presenting it, giving the social conventions, and they're learning about commutative property. They're learning about additive expressions, and they're learning the distributive property, not because I taught it, but because they invented it. They rehumanized mathematics to make sense of it. And now I've got a strategy that I can utilize and talk about in my class. Here is a record. One of the things I want to take them is the symbolic level. So here they tell me what won the game for them. They have to get 4 in a row. Incidentally, if someone gets the same multiple, they can knock off somebody's block and put their block in there so they can be the first to win. You don't know anything about the student other than they know their multiplication facts. But if you ask them, show your evidence, Are you convinced that they know are you convinced that they know their multiplication? This one knows how to break up the number 3 and says use the additive expression of equivalence for 3 and was very successful in the recording. These are the minds that represent their thinking when they share their ideas. Every citizen of the learning community is witness to this, and everyone is beneficiary of it. This is at the symbolical. In this category, again, same thing like the student got the answers. However, if we look at the questions, what do you know about these students' mathematical knowledge? What do you know about the learning opportunities? Not because all I know is they know the basic facts, supposedly. But take a look at how she presented it, and one of the things that's missing is the fact that she has a run-on sentence. 5 times 7 is 35, subtract the 5. You can see her thinking, but the equal sign is not being used properly. So what I saw was this was consistent. There was a mistake there. One of the things was 25 minus, or plus 5. Let's see if I can do this. 25 plus 5, and she got 30. I saw that consistently she had done that. So what I did was, what action would you take to make these mistakes celebrations of learning? I got this. And we talked about it. We took every step. We showed a visual, a physical model. And we represented it so that she saw that there was numbers missing. Real quickly.
We have a 5-minute warning.
Okay. All right. So just real quickly, what I did was it became a directed lesson. We learned about how to split rectangles. We made it into a menu. We started investigating. So all children got to see the equal sign and how to use the distributive properties using a geometric model. And this is some of the results that the children got. They liked it. They thought that it was mind engaging. We learned that word for fun is mind engaging. So what we did was we took a mistake and we made it into a learning opportunity. So children always knew that they were safe. And one of the things I want to leave you with is just power of words. If you celebrate your mistakes, then you will learn something new and you will not make that mistake again. Learn from your mistakes from others. Learn from the mistakes of others. You will never live long enough to make them all yourself. And that's with Eleanor Roosevelt. I had covered the pictures, but I guess my PowerPoint didn't do it. I apologize for that, but
I'll do it in the recording. Don't worry.
Thank you. One of the things that I asked the children is I want to leave you with the voices of children because they are telling you the conditions, the choices, the cause and effect of what teachers can do to help children. If you are trustworthy, nice, and respectful to students, then students will feel safe to express their feelings and leverage for their rights. If you let students speak their minds, then you might be used to students speaking from the heart. This was Rehumanizing Schools, the Rights of the Learner. Our reactions in situations of learning reveal our innermost values and beliefs. What comments or reactions do you have concerning the information communicated in this webinar? I don't know if we have time for reactions or comments, but this is just kind of an overview of just what the learning rights. And all I tell you is when children feel that their voices are heard, there's persistence, there's confidence, there's hope. They will adapt because of new information, not because somebody told them to do it, but because they know something and they need that information. And they will confront, when they can't get an answer, they will confront situations in a way that's meaningful to them. They're powerful. Thank you.
Excuse me for that. Thank you so much, Olga, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, Linda and Todos, for your partnership in this endeavor. And thank you to you, those of you who joined us this afternoon. As a reminder, this webinar has been recorded and will be available on Casio Education's YouTube channel and on Todos's website. If you need a certificate of attendance, please email calctraining@casio.com. Be sure to join us on August 26th as we continue this conversation on equity in education. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.